Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So, we are back to another reading of the Mandukya Upanishad. Let me make sure that I'm audible first before we get started. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah, I think the audio is working just fine. So, I'll go ahead and get started. So, this is session 3. We've already had 2 sessions of reading, and I wanted to summarize a couple of points from Schwartz before we move forward, just to sort of level set. And again, no link today, just a reading session. Uh, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll try to address them at the end of the session, basically. The session is going to run about 45 minutes. That's probably as long as I can take it. The material is quite interesting and also a little bit dense, thought provoking. Introspection is the name of the game in these kinds of situations. Less is more sometimes. Okay. So let me show you something here. It's like page 5 of 24. So here Schwartz says, let's see. So why are we studying this Om or Aum or whatever, right? So here Schwartz very clearly says in paragraph number 3 on this page, 1, 2, 3. Let me quickly read that so that we can add a little bit of method to the madness to see why we are doing all this. So here it says, the aim of the Mandukya is to analyze the creation and arrive at the truth, the limitless I. But the analysis of the creation, as modern science will testify, is daunting because every advance in knowledge opens up a new era of ignorance. The more you try to analyze, the more ignorant you feel or that you find yourself because your assumptions seem to be not making all your findings irrelevant. But the analysis of the creation, yeah, blah, blah, opens up a new era of ignorance. So the Upanishad takes a shortcut. And this is important to remember. So if somebody asks you, or if you ask yourself the question, okay, why am I studying this Om, right? This Upanishad answers that question by saying it is making a very quick shortcut. What is it? By equating the limitless I, which is nothing but the consciousness, with the world, as it does in the first mantra, right? You go back to the first mantra of the Mandukya, we'll come to it. So what does the first mantra say? Okay, let me go back and see what it says. Right, I think in the end he has given these mantras. So what does it say? Uh, hang on. Yeah, Om, the word is all this. A clear explanation of which follows. All that is past, present, and future is Om. Whatever is before the past and after the future is Om. So they have reduced. It's like the thermodynamics definition, right? Positive work is said to be done when the sole effect external to the system can be reduced to the raise of a weight. Right? Some kind of a very basic framework level assumption or a shortcut, basically. All right. So given that you study the Om, you can study you will understand the universe is the shortcut in this Upanishad. By equating the limitless I consciousness with the world, as it does in the first mantra, the whole cosmos is the word Om, we come to understand the world by inquiring into the self. And that is the method to the madness. You know yourself, you will know the universe. All right. The waker, dreamer, and the deep sleeper. That is what we looked at, the 4-state framework, and the observer that sits outside of this. Okay. So then we go to the next sub chapter. What is it? If I am real, I have to exist all the time. That's what the next chapter says. Okay. So in the previous chapter, we talked about the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state, and how there is interoperability between these three states, right? And the upadhi changes, and the state of the Maya and Avidya changes between them. But there seems to be a continuum, that is the observer, that is existent across all three states. Fair. So now we are going to, if I am real, I have to exist all the time. Okay, that is the next chapter. Okay, let's get started. The answer to who am I is that I'm not any of these egos or ego states, right? Ego states being the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper. If I am real, I have to exist all the time. Real being temporally independent of time. Okay, that's very important. So you're going between these states, three states. Within a state, the state is real, but it is finite. It's not infinite, time-wise, right? Because you sleep for 8 hours, you wake up, right? That state is gone. So given that, if you think of them as discrete states, the only continuum that exists between these states should be the I, because I is infinite, eternal, the consciousness. That's what the Brahma Sutras tell us, basically, right? Okay. If I am real, I have to exist all the time. I can't suddenly be one thing 1 minute and something else the next. I experience life as a complete conscious being, the uppercase I. Very important to remember, and there's a lot of weightage when this I shows up in a sentence. Okay, and I'm not going to emphasize it again and again, but you need to understand that when we talk about the I, we are talking about that fourth state and the Brahman, basically. In fact, I exist in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states, independent of the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. As what? Okay. So you exist, fine. I exist. So what do I exist as? Right? Is there any form? Is there any shape? Is answering. As the limitless I. That's how I exist. The awareness, the common factor, and witness to these three states. Note in exhibit 1. So we're now going back to figure 1 or exhibit 1. Okay, exhibit 1. That the self, the white circle in the center of all states, exists in all three states without modifying its nature. So the core, the white circle in the middle, is unchanging and it exists across the three states. All right. Outside of meditation, the self is probably easiest to recognize in the dream state because the physical senses are inactive. So the moment the manas is turned inward and not receiving inputs from the external indriyas, external sense organs, then Swartz is saying that it's the easiest to recognize the self because now they are free. They are not consumed by the noise of the external world. So now the indriyas or the manas, which is the receptor of all the senses, the manas has turned inwards basically, right? In the dream state. Because when you're dreaming, you are sleeping on a bed, for example, or sleeping on the floor, the body is inactive, the hands, legs, everything, all these like the bahyendriyas are not, the external facing sensory organs are not functioning anymore. You are asleep basically, right? So now that can turn inward towards the self. Okay. Self is probably easiest to recognize in the dream state because the physical senses are inactive. The dream is playing on the screen of the mind like a movie, and even though physical light is absent and eyes closed, the dream ego, ego again, not I don't know if I don't think it is in the Western sense of the ego, but here we are talking about the I-ness, the ahankara, basically, right? That's what he is referring to. The dream ego and the events in which it is participating are clearly illumined, a phenomenon referred to as lucid dreaming. All right, let's see, lucid dreaming. Okay, that's what he's talking about. The lucidity is limitless. I temporarily functioning as the dreamer, the shining one. However, identification with the dream ego and its doings prevents us from properly appreciating the dream light, the self. So, in the dream, you have a Sukshma Sarira. Potentially, you are able to do things that you are not able to do in the physical world because the physical limitations do not exist. But who is observing the dream body and the dream reality? Which is that self? You can think of the same observer becomes the light that lends consciousness to a particular state, right? So it's a dual, it's a multifaceted role that the eye plays. The eye is observing, right? But at the same time, you can think of it as it is observing what it brings to light. So the light is being shined by the eye itself, right? But because the dream is lucid, right? It's not just a series of impressions. You it sometimes feels so real that you are again lost in the um, drama or the cinema of the dream and not really paying attention to the light that is bringing the dream into your reality, basically. Okay, next page. The self is unknown in the waking state for the same reason, right? So there's not much difference between the dream and the waking. It's just that the big sensory organs are not functioning, but the subtle sensory organs, the subtle ego, all the subtleties are there, and there is the fantasticity or the phantasmagoria sometimes, right, of the dream because it is not bound by physical rules in many cases. The self is unknown, and also morality, by the way. There is so-called morality that everybody is talking about these days. I don't know why anybody would be concerned about the morality of another person, right? First, you need to sort your own morality out before asking somebody what your morality is, right? Because laws are not made in countries based on morality, so they are based on laws, right? The self is unknown in the waking state for the same reason. Preoccupied with the happenings in our worlds and minds, we are completely unaware that both the sense objects and our thoughts and feelings are bathed, right, in the subtle light of awareness. This is a beautiful sentence. Okay, one more time. Preoccupied with the happenings in our worlds and minds, we are completely unaware that both the sense objects and our thoughts and feelings are bathed in the subtle light of awareness. Awareness is the light that illumines your Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti states. In the deep sleep, in deep sleep, the ego or intellect is dissolved into its source. Let's go back to deep sleep. That is the third state, right? The top state where everything is darkness. In deep sleep, the ego or intellect, hello sir. In deep sleep, the ego or intellect is dissolved into its source, the dormant seeds of its past actions. So it isn't aware of either the self or anything external. Okay, the dormant seeds of its past actions. Why does he say that? Because that is a world of potentiality. There is neither idea nor physical manifestation or the appearances of both of them in that particular state. That state is free from ideas, concepts, or they. I mean, when I say ideas, concepts, please assume that I'm saying the appearances of ideas and concepts, because at least as far as this session is concerned, we are firmly adhering to the principle that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, basically, right? From the great Shankara. So the Midya, that is the dream and the waking state, does not exist in the deep sleep state, basically. Okay, so you are back to the dormant seeds of the past actions. You are back to the potentiality. Okay, so it isn't aware of either the self or anything external, basically. So in the deep sleep state, there is emptiness, right? There's no mind, to logically conclude that there is a self observing and all that. There is emptiness, which in itself is a manifestation, and then there is the observer, which is infinite bliss. Just think of that state a little bit. The deep sleep state in my mind is quite fascinating. Okay, so what remains in the deep sleep state? Some potentiality that some of the examples that our pravachanakartas give for this is, it is like the smell of the curry that remains in a pot. Once you make curry and then you clean the pot, right? Curry doesn't exist, right? Neither does the idea of the curry, but then there is some leftover remnants, some atoms or something non-physical that remains. The quality of the curry adheres to the pot, and that is what is present in that particular state, basically. Okay, remember again and again and again, this I want to emphasize. Some people argue, some people, right? And again, I'm not going to fault them or anything, that the I, the concept of the ahankara is what remains in this deep sleep state. It does not. Okay. Sankhya completely refutes it. The I-ness is not what remains in this deep sleep state. The I is also gone, basically, right? The Mula Prakriti or the potentiality is what exists. So when a Pravajankarta says, when you are in deep meditation, there is this I that keeps coming to your, that keeps getting shined upon that empty screen. We'll have to completely refute it and then actually kill that concept. Okay. The manifestation of the wave, the appearance, does not start with the I. It starts with the mind first. Then only comes ahankara, because that is the pravritti marga, basically. It is the buddhi first, which is also called the mahat, then the I, then the manas and everything else, basically. The trigunas and everything else. All right. Clarified, case closed. Okay. And I do not agree with that I part. Anyway, that's one man's opinion. No need to get too hung up on that. Okay. Now, what does Swartz say? Now he's going back. Right? He's saying the three egos are called upadhis, limiting adjuncts in Vedanta. Upadhi is a boundary that limits the infinite. It's as simple as that, right? There is a clean white sheet. You're drawing either a circle or you're drawing a line in the middle, right? It's a line in the sand that says this and that, plus and minus, positive and negative, right? Or in the Visishtadvaita sense, it is the microcosm that stands separate from the macrocosm because of the boundary, right? Of course, Advaita argues that that boundary is just an appearance. Visishtadvaita says that boundary is real and the smaller circle can never be the bigger circle, even though they are formed from the same material. Fair enough, right? Whatever you want, however you want to go about it, doesn't matter. And upadhi is something that apparently covers or conceals the nature of something else. If I put clear water in a colored glass, the water seen through the glass appears colored. So it is the color of the glass that gets falsely attributed to the clear water. Similarly, when I look at myself through my waking, dream, and sleep personalities, I seem to be three distinct personalities. However, when I remove the upadhi, when I remove the container, it is clear water only. Katha Upanishad. I can see what I really am, basically. The removal of or negation of the upadhis is simply knowing they are unreal, not going into some higher spiritual state to get rid of them. The Yoga Shastra says liberation depends on destruction of the mind. But Vedanta says the more one struggles to remove the thoughts, the more one lends them reality, reinforcing one's self-ignorance. Swartz, you deserve I'm going to write an email if I get your email address. Wonderfully put. So he has doubled back on yoga, and then basically he has taken the air out of the entire yoga what do you call framework. He said something very simple. Look, the three egos or the upadhis are limiting adjuncts, blah blah blah, etc. When I remove the upadhi, I can really see who I am. Fair. The removal or negation of the upadhis is simply knowing that they are unreal. Okay, not going into some high spiritual state to get rid of them. It's like this. You are desperately trying to turn off the movie while you are awake, basically. Why? You already know that the movie is going to end when you sleep. You already know that the dream is going to end when you go into deep sleep. And you know that that is not your eternal reality, right? All this logical explanation and the step-by-step reasoning has made you stand at the point where you are able to identify the three upadhis. You know that they are not eternal. Then why bother about trying to turn them off? Why bother about turning off the movie, knowing that this movie is just a passing state and then the screen is you, basically. Okay, so you are able to turn off the movie or suppress your external facing senses while you are awake. You are still left with an empty screen only, right? Does that give you the experience that you are actually the screen and the infinite and the waveless consciousness, the infinite consciousness? It does not. Because in Sushupti, every day you are exactly experiencing the same thing, right? You go into deep sleep, there is nothing left. There is an emptiness, no cinema, or maybe the remnants, right? What seemingly potential seeds of your experience and the vast infinite consciousness. So in Sushupti, everybody is going, every living being goes into Sushupti every day. So are all living beings able to experientially realize that they are the infinite self? No. So what makes you think the yoga is going to do the same for you? Absolutely no guarantees, and in fact it does not. Right? That's what the Advaitin will argue always. And hence Yoga Darshana to a very large extent is refuted. Basically, you go to the Brahma Sutra Bhasha of Shankara, he will tell you why Yoga Darshana is limited. Period. End of discussion. While it is a Vedic Darshana, it does not take you to that state of liberation. It might help you because you reduce the noise a little bit by suppressing all your external facing senses and all that, but that is not the final solution. Okay, so here he says he goes further. Swartz goes further. The Yoga Shastra says liberation depends on the destruction of the mind, but Vedanta says that the more one struggles to remove the thoughts, the more one lends them reality. To begin with, Advaita Vedanta says it's an appearance anyway. Why are you trying so hard to make an appearance disappear? Why? By doing so, you are actually you are lending credibility, or you are lending more fuel to that appearance, making it seem like real. Right? You are wasting your energy, boss. Simple. Right? Go do yoga. Good. Okay. Go do the Om chanting. Go do everything else. But realize that that is not going to take you to the final state. It might get you close. And this is where the Advaita Vedanta leapfrogs Buddhism, basically. Okay. Because the screen, while experiencing emptiness, is not empty. It is not nihilism. It is not Shunyavada. It is Purnavada, which is the infinite consciousness Vada, basically. All right. Enough said. The Yoga Shastra says liberation depends on the destruction of the mind, but Vedanta says the more one struggles to remove the thoughts, the more one lends them reality, or as a what do you call byproduct, basically, right? As what they call as an incidental outcome. You are making something that is an appearance more real. Why? Right? Reinforcing one's self-ignorance. So you become more ignorant. That's what he says. It's a very strong statement. Anyway, that's Schwartz, and then he can knock himself out. The waker and the dreamer, which are just different ways of discussing a self-ignorant person, are fractured into many sub-identities, which is upadhis within an upadhi. Now he is going into a little bit more detail on the waker and the dreamer, because those are the two most real states in our hands on a daily basis. So he is saying that the waker and the dreamer are, which are just different ways of discussing a self-ignorant person. Self-ignorant means a self which is surrounded by avidya, right? Misidentified, right? They are fractured into many sub-entities, upadhis within an upadhi, so that most of us are dealing with a confusing array of selves, none of which is real, basically. Remember, real in metaphysics means enduring, unchanging, unlimited. So that's the difference between real in physical sense and real in the metaphysical sense. Unchanging, enduring, timeless, and unlimited. Okay? Without boundaries. Because something is experienced does not make it real. The snake in the rope, the blue sky and the rising sun, for example. Just because you are physically experiencing something, just because you are visually seeing something, does not make it real in the metaphysical sense. Remember, when you say real, when you say satyam, basically, right? Satyam means satyam, jnanam, anantam, brahma, basically, right? Real, eternal, unchanging, infinite. That's what real means in the metaphysical sense. That's what he's saying. But the upadhis in the waker and the dreamer are broken into sub upadhis, right? It could be a role that you're playing in real life as a father, as a son, as a daughter in law, whatever, basically, right? So these are all sub roles that you're playing, and your existence is fractured into these things, right? And hence they are not real by definition. Because again, in the metaphysical sense, in the adhyatmic sense, real satyam means not just physically experienced. It means eternal, unchanging, and conscious, basically. Okay. With reference to my son, so now he's getting into the examples, right? So just because a snake is a rope appears as a snake does not mean snake is real. Basically, it's an appearance that you are superimposing, basically, because of your avidya, okay? Because of lack of light. All right. With reference to my son, I am a father. With reference to my father, a son. With reference to my wife, I am a husband. To my boss, I am an employee. I am a devotee with reference to God, and a taxpayer with reference to the government. The last one is a serious punchline. Thanks, Schwartz. Right? A taxpayer with reference to the government. That's all the government cares about. Right? As far as government, Big Sam is concerned, I am a taxpayer. That's it. I am a series of cash flows that they are expecting from me as long as I breathe and I live. Physically, I show signs of life. They don't give a damn about anything else. And of course, maybe every 4 years a vote. Okay. Even that is a means to an end these days. Okay. With reference to myself, I am a success, failure, victim, victimizer, sports fan, audiophile, or any thousands of ready-made identities available today. All right. Now, if people want to go gangbusters on this, they can try to map this into the Freudian notion of the self, the superego, the ego, and the id. Okay, knock yourself out. There is a full science that people have made a lot of money over the years about it. We are not going to get into that here because again, that is getting into another upadhi that is limited. What do we care? The many often, so there are many identities, right? Oh, I am an alumnus of this particular college. I am my son is uh, a proud father. You see bumper stickers here, right? In the Western world, proud father of a NYU student or proud father of a Cornell graduate, right? That's an identity that you're putting on yourself. There's nothing wrong with it. Any of these things, we look, words right and wrong do not enter into this kind of a discourse, right? We are just observing the world, right? Ourselves, the world, how we relate, what's limited, what's not limited, what is eternal, what is not eternal, temporality, all these kinds of things. Okay. The many often conflicting roles we play as waking and dreaming states ego are limited by each other. Other selves playing similar or different roles, and our ideas about the meaning of these selves. Caught in this thicket of identities, which is like a very dense wooded area, is it any wonder that I suffer? Because you are suffering limitations of yourself and others. Why complain that other people are limited? You are limited yourself, basically, by when I say I am so and so, right? In the end, spiritual life, no matter what the path, always boils down to finding out who one is, minus all of one's roles and experiences. So when you remove all the upadhi related superimpositions, which includes the avidya, which includes the maya and everything, ultimately, who are you? What is, who are you in the metaphysical sense, in the um, non-upadhi sense, right? And this is where the Upanishads shine because they give a framework for us to be able to examine this question. You cannot just answer a question, who am I, without really understanding some of the frameworks, right? It's like trying to derive Schrodinger's wave equation without really understanding linear algebra and the basics of quantum mechanics, right? Because you don't have the frameworks to understand that or to derive that equation, right? And to even make sense of it. Yeah, you can read all the funny like novel like books that come out these days, right, about the so-called in quotes non-physical side of all these quantum physics kind of theories. But it's a, I don't know, it's like reading a time pass book. It won't get you anywhere in terms of understanding what it is unless you understand the mathematics behind it. You will just be peddling around punchlines. Okay. Caught in this thicket of identities, is there any wonder that I suffer? In the end, spiritual life, no matter what the path, always boils down to finding out what one is, minus all of one's roles and responsibilities. Not that there is anything wrong with the role playing. Schwartz has arrived exactly there. Society only functions efficiently when our roles are well defined and we play them impeccably. Impeccably means without any fault, right? But when we identify ourselves completely with our roles, we suffer. Why? Spiritually, identification with the role, not the role itself, is the problem, right? So the role is defined. It's just that you, instead of thinking of yourself as an actor in a movie, if you get so involved that you actually start acting like you are part of that, you are that role, that's when there's a problem, because now the director has a problem, right? Because you are out of control, unless of course you follow the script exactly. For example, though an actress identifies herself with a character, she seamlessly returns to her original identity when the curtain falls. Thank you very much. Even though the audience completely believes her illusion or the appearance, she remembers her real self throughout. And that is why Vedanta becomes important. Because at least from a pure knowledge standpoint, not necessarily experientially, you are aware, or that your real identity is not the role that you are taking on. Your real identity is not the upadhi that that particular state dictates, basically. Yeah. After patient analysis, I can see I'm not any of these personalities. What am I then? Answer. He's answering. Okay. Swartz is now answering. Let's see. Where are we? So, what am I then? Who am I? The limitless I. And what is this limitless I? The limitless I is called the substrate in Vedanta. So he has given a definition for this substrate. Let's say reference 27, he says. What does it say? Adhishtanam. That is what it is. So substrate, when Swartz says substrate, it directly translates into Adhishtanam, basically, in Sanskrit. A substrate makes the error that I am limited possible, right? The rope in our example is a substrate, something whose nature is so subtle it is possible to mistake it for something else. The fact that I am formless consciousness makes the playing of myriad roles possible. Another analogy that is given is I am the substrate, I am the screen on which the movie takes place. There are chariots, there are women, there are men, there is all kinds of drama that happens on the screen. And because the substratum is not involved directly in the movie, it is able to play so many movies. The moment you understand that, you'll be able to identify better with that substratum and start knowing what your true nature is. That is the idea. Okay. A substrate is also the essence, a form reduced to its ultimate nature. For example, a ring, a bracelet, and a necklace are three forms into which gold can be crafted. If the three are melted down, their forms are destroyed, but nothing substantial is lost because the gold, their essence, remains. Meditation on the nature of ourselves melts down the waker, dreamer, and sleeper, destroying the relative eyes and leaving the limitless eye shining as the innermost self of the seeker. So here, the punchline here is, the most important part of this sentence is meditation on the nature of ourselves. Not meditation to say, I want to acquire something, I want this, I want the experience of a particular curry, or I want the particular experience of going to a particular place, right? There have been people in history, especially in the Indian history, that have meditated upon achieving some physical outcomes. Again, nothing wrong with it. It's still meditation. Nevertheless, it will not result in the breaking down of the ego. So, when the story goes, right, Arjuna meditated upon getting the Pashupatam, basically. So, when he is doing that meditation, suddenly he cannot change when Shiva appears and say, Shiva, I started the meditation to acquire Pashupatam, but now that you appeared, I want moksha. That cannot happen, because to begin with, the intention of his meditation was not to destroy his own ego or destroy the upadhis that he is identifying with. He wanted Pashupada, that's why he meditated upon Shiva, basically, right? And that's why here Swartz is very careful. He says meditation on the nature of ourselves. So there are some rishis that have gone into that kind of meditation, right? What is my true nature? If that is your objective to start the meditation, then the result is going to be potentially the de-identification with all these upadhis, basically. It melts down. The meditation on the nature of ourselves melts down the waker, dreamer, and sleeper, destroying the relative eyes, right? Relative eye being the three different states, the eyes in each of these states, and leaving the limitless eye shining as the innermost self of the seeker, the core circle, the self that exists in all these states. When I look more carefully into this conscious being, I find that I am whole and complete. Purnasya Purnam, basically. Nothing is missing. Because nothing is missing, I am peaceful and desireless. Game, set, and match. QED. So, meditation upon your true nature will also result as a byproduct in the dissolving of all the desires, basically. Right? If I am peaceful and desireless, I never change. When I look into my limitlessness, I discover that I'm free of everything. Being free of limitation means that I'm eternally blissful as I am in sleep. When I look into my bliss, I see that my nature is pure love. Okay, in this sentence, our man has added another tadka here called pure love. Okay, now this you can take it, you can leave it, because what is the definition of love? I do not know. Okay, some people say it is pure love, some people say it is pure vibration, some people say it is pure blah blah, etc., 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 whatever. I do not care what noun you put after the pure. I only care about the pure part, basically. Unsullied by the upadhi, unsullied by maya or avidya. This is what matters. Okay, if my real self is like this, what need is there to assume limited identities? Now remember this: once you know that your nature is pure love, you don't need another partner to make you whole. Even that desire is gone, basically, because you are whole, complete by yourself. Remember that. So the Hindi movie, the style like that, Hollywood style love affair and all that, this is not that love, basically, right? If my real self is like this, what need is there to assume limited identities? Absolutely, because you are full by yourself as you are, right? Like what Ramana Maharshi says, Sahaja Samadhi, basically, right? You are in your natural state and you are complete, eternally blissful. No need for taking on any upadhis or roles, basically, right? Or better yet, knowing who I am, I won't get caught up in the limited identities life asks me to play. Self realization, enlightenment, liberation, salvation is not a mind blowing mystical state, but simply the condition of someone abiding in his or her real nature. Simple, simply, right? Naturally. That is the final understanding, basically, right? You are full by yourself. There's no need to take on any upadhi to complete you. Okay. To suppose that one must Ah, yeah. So simply condition of someone abiding in his or her real nature. To suppose that one must enter a transcendental superconscious conscious state to lose the waker, dreamer, sleeper identities is untrue. Bang, basically. The enlightened sleep, dream, and carry the enlightened people or the enlightened souls sleep, dream, and carry on a normal waking life, minus the feeling of limitation, bedeviling the unenlightened. Free of the expectation that experience should bring lasting happiness, they never deny duality, only its apparent reality. Because, like the snake in the rope, it isn't actually there. Congratulations. I think these three sentences are worth their weight in gold, right? An enlightened being never denies duality. Remember this. They just deny the reality of it. They never deny the appearance of the snake. They tell you that it's only an appearance, basically. So they go about doing whatever it is, normal waking life. So many times I get asked the question, or the question comes up. So, okay, you are self realized, or as an Advaitin, what do you do in your life? I do exactly what anybody else does, but with the knowledge, not the experience yet, with the knowledge that what I am seeing is a transient, unreal state. Unreal being non eternal, um, avidya, upadhi based life, basically, right? What I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing a waker ego. In the dream ego. In the deep sleep, the sushupti ego. But none of these is permanent, right? There is a fourth state. With that knowledge, you go about doing everything without really craving for some kind of completeness through any of these upadhis, basically, right? So, free of expectation, the experience should bring lasting happiness. They never deny duality. They only the apparent reality, because like the snake in the rope, it isn't actually there, basically, right? So the duality is there, the appearance is there, but um, it's not real. With that knowledge, you do whatever it is that you do in your life. And there are any number of slokas in Bhagavad Gita that talk about sarvarambha parityagi, anapeksha sthiramatihi, bhaktiman me priyo naraha, right? There are so many ways in which this is stated. This is the state that they are referring to. You do not look for some experience to complete you, basically, right? But you go about playing the role as if a movie actor plays a particular role, right? It's an analogy. Don't go and start following movie actors, right? It's the role that the screen plays while displaying a movie, basically. Today it's movie X, tomorrow it's movie Y. But at the end of the day, the screen remains unchanged, eternal, everlasting through these shots that come in a movie, basically. All right. With that, pretty much, I want to stop here, right? Because the appearance of the snake is real and the time is also real. It's about 42 minutes. A lot of very good ideas presented in a very simple, succinct manner. Again, we should thank Schwartz for making it as simple as what it is, because not only is he providing a brief on Mandukya, but he's touching upon many other aspects, demystifying what the glorious uh, Indian philosophical lineage and the seers and the rishis have presented to us, right? And we should appreciate the depth of his work, basically, right? And again, thanks to the author of this monograph, or a small gist, James Swartz, basically, right? And the next subchapter of this brief is called Vedanta and Meditation, basically. We'll address it in our next session. At the same time, I'll also try to give a quick brief on each of the sessions, right, in the description. So if you want to, and I'm adding it to a playlist, so you can listen to the playlist. But at the same time, if you want to hold in, if you want to sort of zero in on any one particular chapter or subchapter or a question or a sentence or some idea that Schwartz has presented, you should be able to search very quickly for it, basically. Like this kind of material, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever it is, please put them whenever you listen to the live. Basically, you don't have to do it now. And I'll try to answer them, basically, right? But most of the time, the answers are going to look more like, okay, look into your own experience kind of thing. But the framework is here, basically. Use this framework to analyze your own experience. That is how the Upanishads mostly stated. There are no final statements. They just say, if you observe your experience very carefully, this is what you might find, basically, right? And whether you find it or not depends on the layers of the upadhi misidentification that you have, right? So again, there is always this shortcut that people say that, when you are ready, the guru will come and teach you and all that. Gurus come in different shape and form, right? Shapes and forms. And it need not be a human guru. It could be a YouTube video. It could be something else. It could be a book. It could be a statement. It could be just a sudden flash of insight that you get while you're doing something very mundane, basically, right? Look for all inputs from everywhere and then try to understand your true nature. That is the idea of Mandukya and any of the Upanishadic teachings of the Indian philosophical, uh, the, the vast body of work, or the vast body of knowledge that is the Indian philosophical uh, frameworks, basically. So with that, I'm going to close this session. Maybe I'll wait for 30 seconds if there are any questions in the call, text or whatever it is. exactly, and then I'll just wrap. It's a Sunday, it's a long weekend, especially in the West, the US. So for everybody, again, once again, happy 4th. If you've already had one, happy long weekend. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, whatever is left of it. All right.